guys, welcome back to the channel. Strap on your tinfoil hats, it's time for another conspiracy. This one we're going to look at the conspiracies behind Agenda 21, which, if you're not familiar with what Agenda 21 is, according to Wikipedia, it is a non-binding action plan of the United Nations with regards to sustainable development. It's the product of the Earth Summit, which is a UN conference on environment and development that was held in Rio, Brazil in '92. It's an action agenda for the UN and other multilateral organizations and individual governments around the world that can be executed at local, national and global levels. One major objective of Agenda 21 initiative is that every local government should draw its own local Agenda 21. Its aim initially was to achieve global sustainable development by 2000, with the 21 in Agenda 21 referring to the original target of the 21st century, which, by the way, didn't actually start in the year 2000. So they messed up there. 2001 is the first year of the 21st century, because there's no year zero. No. There is simply a year 1 BCE and then a year 1 CE, which means the first century actually went from 1 to 100, meaning that the last year of any century is actually the one that ends in all zeros. So the end of the 19th century was 1900. End of the 20th century was the year 2000. Easiest way to remember it, the first two numbers of the year will be the century it concludes, so 20, and then the last two will be zeros. Pretty easy. So 2100 will be the end of the 21st century, meaning that we're near a quarter of the way through. But you already knew that. Anyway, just a little bit of time history for you. Cool. So I've got a Guardian article here from 2015 titled Agenda 21, a conspiracy theory puts sustainability in the crosshairs. Could right-wing attacks on a non-binding UN sustainability resolution put sustainable businesses at risk in some states? This is an American Guardian, because it's talking about the states, and then under the picture it says in Texas. So, but let's read what it has to say. Mind, this is 2015, so if it ever says, like this many years ago, or the thing is this old, that number's changed. Add 6, or I'll add 6, so you don't have to think that too hard. So it says green space, clean energy, increased urban density, and global dictatorship. It's hard to see how all of these things could connect, but according to a popular right-wing conspiracy theory, a UN resolution aimed at sustainable development could pave the way. Theorists argue that Agenda 21, a now 29-year-old non-binding UN resolution that suggests ways for governments and NGOs to promote sustainable development, is the linchpin in a plot to subjugate humanity under an eco-totalitarian regime. Excuse me. One of its most outspoken critics, American Policy Center president, former president, I don't know. I'm not American, and the American Policy Center is not something I'd be interested in, even if I was. But at least in 2015, the then president, Tom DeWeese, had described the resolution as a new kind of tyranny that, if not stopped, will surely lead us to a new dark ages of pain and misery yet unknown to mankind. Sure thing, Tom. APCs on the political fringes, but anti-Agenda 21 sentiment is, or at least was, moving into the political mainstream. Criticism of the resolution extended to the Republican Party's 2012 platform, which stated, "We strongly reject the UN Agenda 21 as erosive of American sovereignty." You don't run the world, you run one country within it. I'm sure if every other army in the world united, we could easily take you. Easily. Legislators in several states have even created anti-Agenda 21 bills, many of which could pose serious threats to companies pursuing sustainability in those states. It then talks about an Arizona bill, which had dictated that the state could not adopt or implement the creed, doctrine, or principles of any tenet of Agenda 21, and prohibited it from implementing programs of expending any sum of money for being a member of, receiving funding from, contracting services from, or giving financial or other forms of aid to a host of organizations with sustainability agendas, including the President's Council on Sustainable Development. Thankfully, this bill was defeated in 2012, but would have curtailed almost any sustainability efforts in Arizona, restricted the activities of tens of thousands of philanthropic organizations that promote sustainability, and potentially scared away hundreds of sustainability-minded companies, meaning that Arizona's economy would have crashed hard. I would have said take a plunge, but it would have only been in their own trash-filled waters. If it hadn't been defeated, Phoenix Mayor Greg Stanton feared the bill would send the message that Phoenix doesn't believe in a sustainable economic future, could negatively impact not only Phoenix and its residents, but the entire state. Agreed. It addresses issues ranging from children's health to public transportation to women's empowerment, all of which could also have been severely curtailed under the sweeping wording of Arizona's bill. So, yeah, if it hadn't been defeated, not only sustainability, and like, sustainable practices like, green technologies and whatnot, but public transport, women's empowerment, and children's health would have all been taken along in the toxic deluge. The state's Chamber of Commerce was among the bill's staunchest opponents. Yeah. So yeah. There's a whole bunch of stuff here. It's not really telling me anything about the actual thing itself, it's just saying about how it could have... It's in the description anyway, if you want to have a full read. I'm gonna go into another article. Agenda 21, Dark Conspiracy, Aussies are lapping up. So this one's an Australian one. A little closer to home for me. Don't know, this was 2019. A little bit more recently. December 22nd, 2019. So, right around the time before COVID started. Tens of thousands of Aussies engaging in Agenda 21 conspiracy on social media. Meaning that it wasn't just like rising to popularity in 2012, had a couple of bills defeated and faded away. No, it's not doing this, it's doing this. And potentially still gaining traction. I would not be surprised at all if, now that the world's coming back to a semblance of normalcy, if people don't start putting all of the COVID conspiracies, including vaccine conspiracies, etc., putting that into part of the Great Reset, and maybe they may associate that with Agenda 21. Like, I wouldn't be surprised. Would not be surprised at all. But let's have a read here. So tens of thousands of Australians are lapping up a ridiculous conspiracy theory that climate change is a UN-led hoax to aggressively depopulate the world. Social media platforms are being used to push the theory known as Agenda 21, and in the past 4 weeks alone, those past 4 weeks being the entire month of December, basically, last week of November, first 3 weeks of December of 2019. Hundreds of Australians have engaged in posts about it. A joint investigation by news.com.au and social media intelligence agency Storyful over the past month, again that past month was December of 2019, found only a handful of those posts take place on fringe sites such as Gab and 4chan. 4chan not being a site you want to go to if you value not being hacked. It's not a safe website to go onto. Bulk of Agenda 21 conversations are on mainstream platforms, Twitter and Facebook, where tens of thousands of Australians have liked and followed Australian-based pages dedicated to the conspiracy. Such posts have. How come the Agenda 21 map for Australia lines up with the fires perfectly? There's a number of... No. I actually wanna... Can I... Are you gonna let me... You're not gonna let me zoom in on that photo? I wanna look closer at that photo. And then someone else... That can't happen. Jesus Christ. Someone else had tweeted, "It's snowing at hashtag Perisher, 26th of the 11th, 2019. Hashtag climate change hoax. Hashtag Australia. Hashtag Ozpol. Hashtag I Stay True Blue." At a whole bunch of people. You guys really need to stop with the bull. There is hashtag no climate emergency. Stop pushing hashtag Agenda 21. For anyone not aware, 26th of the 11th is the 26th of November in Australia. We don't put our months first, so the 11 is November, the 26 is the date. Day, month. The way we write our dates, it increases in size. So day, month, year. But that puts it 4 days out from the official beginning of summer by calendar months. So the fact that it was snowing, while seasonally odd, can happen. It is weird though, but Perisher is one of the ski fields in the snowy mountains of Australia. So it's at a high altitude, so it's already going to be cold anyway because of altitude. And you get a strong enough cold front coming through, yeah, it can snow even at that time of year. There are parts of Australia that have been known to get into 50 degrees Celsius at times. I myself have had to deal with my own fair share of like 40-degree days. They're not fun. The only thing that you can do to pass those days is run yourself a cold bath and just sit in that like all day, and just pray that the heat doesn't make the water warm. Yeah. But no, that can 100% happen. I don't know what that dude's talking about. As for the map lining up with the fires on the 11th of November 2019, they're both maps of Australia, so unless I can actually get a closer look at the Agenda 21 map, I can't actually say for certain what it is they're talking about. yeah, I don't know. Unless it's a case of like some of the towns that they've got listed just happened to have had fires. I mean, in 2019, basically the entire country was on fire, and our Prime Minister decided to go for a trip to Hawaii because he's a cunt. But it doesn't really make sense to have, oh, there's fires here in a place where there's no people to notify about them. So if it's simply just, oh look, this has these particular towns and stuff listed, and that's where this map has fires, that's because that's where people live. But again, until I actually get a closer look at that map, I can't say for certain. So continuing. While many of the posts captured by Storyful Search came from anonymous accounts pushing right-wing and anti-immigration rhetoric, several of the most influential posts came from mainstream voices. So what is the conspiracy? So it centers on Agenda 21 and Sustainable Development Goals adopted by more than 178 governments in 1992. The document sets out broad objectives for governments to combat poverty and protect the environment, being sustainable in as many ways as is possible, while also keeping that economic capitalist wheel turning. These goals were updated in 2015 with the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which sets out 17 broad goals, including to, quote, take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts, and that was agreed on by all UN member states, all of them. So while conspiracy theories about the goals date back to at least 2012, with close links to the US Tea Party movement, the idea has been pushed with renewed vigour and increasing coverage of and political concern about climate change. And as the catastrophic bushfires dominated headlines and conversations for like the entire last 2 months of 2019, it appeared the theory had gained massive traction on social media. So what exactly are people claiming? What really is the conspiracy part of all of this? Well, as bushfires swept across Australia, destroying homes and claiming lives, a number of Twitter posts emerged linking the unfolding disaster with Agenda 21. One tweet suggested the blazes weren't wild, but the result of deliberate directed energy attacks, which drew nearly 80 interactions. Another tweet highlighting the recent out-of-season snow at Perisher and telling Greens politicians to stop with the bullshit elicited a similar response. And those must have been the two that were higher up in this article. However, it's on Facebook that the conspiracy theory appears to have gained the most traction. Pages pushing the concept frequently post extreme anti-immigration or here it is, I knew it was coming, or anti-vaccine content, or carrying links from junk news sites purporting to expose chemtrail activity or secret government-endorsed weather engineering projects. Okay, so we got anti-vaxxers, we got racists, we got chemtrails, we got, a directed energy attack has to have been, if I'm remembering that particular conspiracy correctly, it's a directed energy beam from satellites, which means that like space exploration and just communications systems the world over are involved. Yeah, okay, wow. Is this like the only thing that they think the Illuminati does? It must be, right? Like it has to be at this point. They're just like going, oh yeah, no, Agenda 21, because this thing, even if that thing has nothing to do with sustainable, like sustainability. It's this sort of shit. that makes me distrust humans. Chemtrails is such a stupid one to include there. I knew it would be, but it's anyway. One article from 2015 from a US conspiracy theory site, Natural News. You know when it says conspiracy theory site and then it's called Natural News. The only thing natural about it is I don't know, that it exists on Earth. Anyway, entitled The United Nations 2030 Agenda Decoded. It's a blueprint for the global enslavement of humanity under the boot of corporate masters, which had been shared, at least at the time of publishing this article, more than 26,000 times worldwide on Facebook, and initially drew a muted response from Australian networks. Before 2019, it was posted 13 times to Australia-themed groups and pages. However, since the start of the year, it had been shared a further 30 times. And then we got another post here. Anyone remember voting for Australia to commit to Agenda 21-2030? SDGs embody Australian values and our ambitions for our region: prosperity, sustainability, and inclusivity. Why wouldn't you want to prosper? Why wouldn't you want to be stable? And why wouldn't you want to include people? I don't get it. We joined with others to reaffirm our commitment to the UN's 2030 agenda at September SDGs. Yeah. I don't understand. Is he trying to be like, oh, we've signed this thing, but does anyone ever remember voting for it? Yeah. When we voted in whoever was in power in 2019, that's when we voted for it. If they've made the decision to be like, yep, sign that thing, we're in for it, that's when you voted for it. So I do remember that. Thank you. Anyway, the combined posts for the article, which connects UN plans for climate change action with a plot to, quote, force the masses into public transit where facial recognition cameras can monitor and record the movement of every person in society, drew more than 1,000 interactions from posts to 29 different groups and pages. Similarly, a February blog post setting out the alleged conspiracy to depopulate and rule the world under the guises of the UN plans and the need to act on climate change was shared a dozen times in quick succession by Australian-themed groups and pages in September. So the post had been made in February, and it wasn't until September that they were sharing them. I don't understand what goes through people's brains. I do not. Those posts generated more than 250 interactions. And it's not just anonymous trolls spreading the message. Mainstream voices, of course it was, notably representative of Pauline Hanson's One Nation Party. I'm gonna do the thing. I'm gonna meme it, but please explain. Please explain. But they posted about Agenda 21. The top 3 Agenda 21 tweets by engagement all came from Queensland Senator Malcolm Roberts, who famously highlighted many of the key elements of the conspiracy theory in his maiden speech to Parliament. You won't be surprised that water trading is another construct of the UN. This article from the UN outlines how our Australian government put in place water trading rules to satisfy the UN's agenda. Time to put Australia first. Do these people not understand, especially when they put things like time to put insert country of origin first? When they put those sorts of things, but then are trying to shut down something that's trying to be sustainable with our natural resources so we don't deplete our Earth and negatively affect its ecosystems, so that we can continue living here, that we are putting it first. We're just doing it collaboratively with other people putting their countries first as well. Capitalist society, everybody wants to have a part of everything. So if you look after your corner and I look after my corner, all the corners are going to be clean, meaning that we can all share the room together. I'm just focusing on my part of it. Like, it's not that hard. Second highest number of engagements of the Facebook posts were generated by a post from one One Nation candidate Sharon Bell, who unsuccessfully ran for the federal Queensland seat of Blair in the 2019 election. Should we be worried? God, I hope this comes to the conclusion of no, because there's nothing here. There's nothing here. It's a bunch of right-wing idiots thinking that sustainability means a loss in profits, because right-wing politicians, like political views, are all about trying to make essentially the most money. They're all about corporate and like that sort of more capitalist side of things. I think it's on this device. I have got an image here. Let me just make sure I'm quoting the right things to you. No. Come on, I know there's an image. I know exactly what I'm looking for. There it is. They're looking for... yeah, equity, pragmatism. They want free trade, they support employers, their goal is economic freedom, and their focus is on individuals rather than society as a whole. So, of course they don't care about what's going to happen to the rest of society. They only care about themselves. And if they think that it's going to be putting a dent in what they're earning, of course they're going to take issue with it. It's just the capitalist mindset. Anyway, should we be worried? Dr. Will Grant, Senior Lecturer in Science Communication at the Australian National University, looked into the interaction of science, politics and technology over many years, and says the Agenda 21 conspiracy is nothing new, with its heyday being 2011 and 2012. However, he said it was making a comeback as climate change denialists attempted to discredit science. Cool. So no, nothing to be worried about. Just a bunch of people who think that they're going to lose money trying to tell science that it's wrong. Like provable science that it's wrong. So, quote here, Agenda 21 misunderstands the nature of science and is a ridiculous theory. Note that he's talking about the conspiracy theory and not the UN's actual Agenda 21. But it's fodder for far-right thinkers because it gives them a narrative in their mind when they spend years trying to find a way to discredit something that's based on overwhelming evidence. He said theories like this spreading on social media was one of the greatest challenges facing the world, given the enormity of what was at stake with climate change. Platforms like Facebook and Twitter are working in a market where truth has no engagement quality for them, so fake news and bullshit continue to spread continue to spread on their platforms because it gets more engagement. He said this type of theory gaining acceptance in Australia have made it easier for mainstream parties to do nothing on climate change. Climate change is real, it's causing problems now, and we need to do something about it. It's not a big government plot. Just remember, scientists are trained to disagree with each other. They only agree when the overwhelming evidence points in one direction. And on climate change, it does. So it's a bunch of climate change deniers just trying to I had the word and it disappeared. Justify themselves. Just trying to justify themselves. But anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Links for those will be in the description down below if you want to go and have a little look for yourself. If you're new here, please hit the subscribe button while you're there. Ring that notification bell. It turns on the post notifications so you can keep up to date when I upload new videos. If you enjoyed this one, smash that like button for me and let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And until next time, guys, keep your head screwed on.